Hello everyone and welcome back to Beatly Tone's Beatles channel. Lovely to have you here. Thanks for joining me for this video. Hope you're all doing well. Now today's video is episode 1 in a little mini series of videos about the Beatles compilation albums, where we're going to go through all the albums, have a little discussion about them, and at the end we're going to do a ranking of them and sort out the wheat from the chaff, which ones are good, which ones are bad, which ones are totally disposable and have been outmoded. Now we had a little vote on the channel. I was going to do this as one video with a ranking at the end, but it was going to be so long because there are quite a lot of these compilation albums to go through. It was going to be ended up being a really long video. So everyone had a little vote. Well, not everyone, but a few people had a little vote. People that cared had a little vote. People who cared had a little vote, and it transpired that the majority of people would prefer to have these videos in small bites rather than a really long video. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep it to around 10 to 12 minutes maximum for each video. I'm not quite sure how many episodes there's going to be, but I'm kind of going to do a little compromise. I'm going to do maybe 2 or 3 in each video, and they're not going to take ages to drop because I've recorded most of it already. So that they'll come quite quickly. I'll post the first one, which is this one, and you know, when the sort of novelty's worn off of it, I'll put the second one. So you'll get them all fairly quickly. So everyone's happy, right? So yeah, so this is the first time we've done a little mini series of videos. So it's like a mini series with George Clooney, except it's me instead. What would be absolutely marvellous is if down in the comments you tell me what you think about the albums that are in the video, appropriate to the video. You don't need to do your rankings yet. We'll save that for when we get to the ranking video, but just tell me about the albums, whether you bought them, whether you didn't buy them, or whether you like them, whether you hate them, or whether you think they're a complete waste of time. If you're seeing this channel for the first time and you like what we're doing here, it would be absolutely marvellous if you were to hit the subscribe button. That would be fantastic. Give the video a like and hit the notification bell, and then you'll see you'll get a notification when all the others in the series appear. That would be absolutely marvellous. Right, let's get on with it. So the first Beatles compilation to come out in the UK was this one, a collection of Beatles oldies but goldies. Nice picture on the back of the Beatles on tour in 1966. So why did this album come out at that time? Well, there were a number of circumstances, really. Firstly, the Beatles had stopped touring, so everything had kind of gone quiet on the Beatles front. And because it had gone all quiet on the Beatles front, rumours were rife in the press that the Beatles have split up. So putting out an album put it back in everyone's mind, put everyone's mind at rest that the Beatles were still very much still a band. Plus, EMI didn't have anything to sell for Christmas 1966, and that would have been the first Christmas since the Beatles had made it that they didn't have anything to sell. So that's really the main reason that it came out. So let's have a look at the track listing. If you want to read that properly, you can pause the video. So the album consisted of all the singles that had come out in the UK, apart from Love Me Do and Please Please Me, and they were left off because they weren't UK number ones. And additionally, there were 2 other tracks, Yesterday and Michelle. They were also on the album. So how did EMI persuade first generation Beatles fans to buy an album full of songs that they already owned? You know, if you were a big fan in the 60s, you've probably bought all the singles already. You've bought the Help album and you bought the Rubber Soul album, so you've got Yesterday and Michelle. What they did was they remastered the whole catalogue, put it out on CD. No, they didn't. That was another time where they persuaded us all to buy what we already owned for the second time. And what they did was they put this song here, second track, side 2, Bad Boy by Larry Williams, on the album. It had never been released in the UK at that point. It had come out in America on Beatles 6, but never in the UK. Great song, worth having. But if you were a first generation Beatles fan, you'd be a little bit miffed about having to buy a whole album just to get one song. And miffed it seems they were, because the album only got to number 7 in the charts and became the first Beatles album to not reach number 1. Another reason why Beatles fans may have bought this was because there was a stereo version of this album as well, where George Martin had mixed the songs, or some of the songs, into stereo. And because all the singles had come out only in mono, so people will be able to hear these in as a stereo mix for the first time. But bear in mind, this is 1966, and sort of there weren't too many ordinary folk that had stereo equipment. That probably wasn't a big draw to buy the album. Right, so let's have a look at the vinyl, because we all like looking at vinyl, don't we? Here's my copy. I bought this in the 70s, in 1976. So this is a 70s stereo pressing of the album. You can tell it's the 70s because it's got the Parlophone logo in a box and the EMI at the bottom. So different to the 60s that had the yellow Parlophone along the top. So I bought my copy of Oldies but Goldies in 1976 because that was the time where I had just discovered the Beatles and I was buying up the albums. I already had 62 to 66, so I had all the tracks on it apart from Bad Boy. So I bought it for exactly the same reason as first generation Beatles fans bought it, and that was to get the track Bad Boy, because at that time that was the only place you could get it. So I know exactly how you feel, first generation Beatles fans. It's not nice, is it? Those miserly people at EMI treating their loyal fans like shabby donkeys or something like that. No offence to shabby donkeys, but you know what I mean. It's not nice. Anyway, I mean, I've just listened to this album before making this video, and I hadn't played it in like forever. And it's not good. It does not sound good. It hasn't stood the test of time. It's very toppy. It feels very compressed, and it's not good. So my overall opinion on Oldies but Goldies, it is very much of its time, and it has since been superseded by better compilation albums and with nicer sounding versions of these songs. So for me, Oldies but Goldies is pretty dispensable. But you tell me what you think. Did you get this? Did you buy it at the time? Were you one of those miffed first generation Beatles fans? Anyway, that's Oldies but Goldies. So while this series is going to concentrate mainly on UK compilation albums, I do want to include this album here, Hey Jude. The reason I'm including it is because I love it. So this album, it came out in 1970 in the US. We didn't get a release of it here until 1979, but I got my copy in 1976. In fact, it was one of the first Beatles albums that I got. I remember quite clearly that I bought it at the same time as I bought Abbey Road. So this was my situation. I had a Saturday job, and for working all day on Saturday, I got 5 of your British pounds. Now, 5 of your British pounds in those days would buy you 2 LPs. So I used to finish work at 5. I used to hot-foot it down to my local record shop and get there before they shut at 6 and pick 2 albums, and away I went. Not every week, obviously. I had other things to do apart from buy records, but you get the picture. Anyway, but at that time, I didn't really know what I was buying. I didn't have an agenda. I didn't have a list to tick off right at the beginning. I did a little bit later, but when I bought this, I didn't really know what I was buying. I'd go into the record shop and it's like Beatles albums. I didn't really have any control. And I didn't know that this album, firstly, was an import, and secondly, that it wasn't a regular album. I didn't realise that this was a compilation album, and I just bought it because I liked the cover. I obviously had a thing for hairy men at that time, but I just the cover pictures, by the way, taken at John's house at Tittenhurst Park, and that's the back of the sleeve, and obviously there's the track listing. The tracks there, funnily enough, are not in the order that they are on the records. A bit like Let It Bleed, the Rolling Stones album. That's also got a list of tracks, but they're not in the right order. Anyway, let's have a look at the vinyl. See side 1 and side 2. Now, this album was Alan Klein's idea, and I think that the idea behind the album was to pick up songs that had not been out on a Capitol album before. But I think it was a bit of a scattergun approach, because I think there were probably things that hadn't been out on an album that aren't included on this, like, I don't know, off the top of my head, The Inner Light, maybe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that probably wasn't on an album. So if you don't know this album, the track listing in the correct order is side 1, Can't Buy Me Love, I Should Have Known Better from Hard Day's Night, Paperback Writer and Rain, A side and B side of that single, Lady Madonna, Revolution. On side 2, it was Hey Jude, Old Brown Shoe, Don't Let Me Down, and The Ballad of Johnny Yoko. A fine set of songs. I have to say that I really love this album, and I think it's because the fact that I bought it in ignorance as a compilation album, and I bought it so early on, that I feel like we've got history. So I really adore this album. And also, when you put it in context, it was right at the beginning of my Beatles buying career. No, not a career. It's not a career. I'm not getting paid for it. I don't do this for a living. The start of my Beatles buying history, let's say, I didn't have many albums. So the fact that, I only had a few albums meant the ones that you do have, you just play them over and over and over again, play them absolutely to death. So I've always really loved this album. And as far as I'm concerned, Hey Jude is still a winner. So that concludes episode 1 of the little mini series on compilation albums. Thank you so much for watching. The second episode will be along very shortly indeed. I won't tell you what's going to be in it. You can guess. But do tell me in the comments what you think about these 2 albums. That would be really great. And of course, if you're new and you want to see all the rest of the videos, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and hit the notification bell. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on episode 2.